Hello, what is going on everyone, and welcome to my channel. So today we will be going over how to draw clear elements in Procreate. I've always loved the animation table, or messy workplace style, that displays the sketching and designing phase. I think that you can apply these elements to many of your work pieces, and hopefully I can teach you something new today. Without further ado, let's get started. Let's go ahead and start with the tape. What I do for tape is I start off with a rectangle and I kind of make little tear marks, and then I'll go ahead and fill the rectangle, and then I'll take the cotton brush as an eraser, and here I'll play with the cotton brush until I get a look that I like. This is why I like keeping it on its own layer, the tape, because you can use the selection tool to continue to erase and find what you like. But for me, having it on its own layer makes it a lot easier. And plus, you'll need it anyway because you'll definitely want to be repositioning your tape, when on the final product. Alrighty, so making the animation cell is going to be similar in the fact that it's going to be a rectangle, and I'm going to use the cotton brush as an eraser. You might want something a little bit more clear or up to industry standard, if you're making it like a animation cell and you want it to be completely clear. It just depends on personal taste. My taste is, making it look a little bit older, or make it look like it's been through a few filing cabinets, and you'll kind of see that here. It adds that kind of grimy look, but that's just what I like personally. And then here I am taking an image and layering it on top. And then what I'll do is I'll adjust the saturation and the brightness of it. And I'll merge those two layers together, and then I'll warp it. And you can see that lifts both the image and the cell, and it just makes it look like one piece. Well, because it is, because you merged the layers, but you get what I'm saying. And so there goes the tape. It's on top, and you bring it to the top, and you can see how it kind of layers together. Pretty cool looking, It almost looks like an X-ray, and that's kind of what the original piece that I made was to be an X-ray. But anyway, this is a post-it note. I like adding post-it notes. Post-it notes are pretty simple to make. What I do is I just make a square, and then I drop in a gray color, and then I add a bit of noise. And then I'll go ahead and drop my image or my text or whatever it is that I have sketch on top of that, and then I'll warp it. You always kind of want to warp a post-it note because I can't talk. You always kind of want to warp a post-it note because post-it notes always have that weird little like little lifted edge, because you have to peel them off. So it looks pretty cool. Next, I'm gonna make another cell, and then to prevent this from being a yapathon, I'm just gonna let the video speak for itself. I'm gonna bring in an older drawing. I'm a little lazy today because I'm not gonna draw everything from scratch. In terms of, my little mascot here, my cat. But yeah, so anyway, without further ado, I'll let the video play. So the paper here, I like using kind of a pencil like the Sinnr pencil to draw the lines. Adds that kind of, I wouldn't say noise, but it makes it look like it's an actual piece of paper here. You can see I made it blue. Sometimes a lot of my art is just, or most of the time, my art is black and white, and that's just the way I like it. That's my style. But adding color sometimes, like a little bit of color on the piece of paper, really makes the piece pop. And so, I don't know. But anyway, so as you can see here, I'm just kind of making the piece of paper. I'm going to adjust the sides, kind of erase everything that I feel like is, a little bit too much. But you can see already that the paper looks pretty realistic, and I haven't really even added any effects. I'm adding the holes here. Don't roast me on these holes and the placement and the spacing of these holes. I just kind of winged it. But as you can see, I'm going to add a bit of noise. That's really the secret to kind of making kind of realistic looking paper, is just adding a little bit of noise. Not too much, but just the right amount. And then lowering the brightness of it. But before we do all of that, here is my little mascot. I'm going to draw it. I'm going to add a coffee stain. I'm weird. I like adding like little elements like that because I think it adds so much character to a piece, And so you could use a lot of brushes for a coffee stain, but what I like to do is I like to drop the opacity, duplicate it, displace it a little bit, and then add a bit of Gaussian blur. I'm sorry, I'm going to mispronounce that. And chromatically aberrate it. As weird as it sounds, I don't know what it is, but adding a little bit of chromatic aberration to like the underpiece can really actually make it look kind of, I don't know, it just makes it look kind of cool, and it really does make it look like it's kind of been wet before. But I don't know, that's just something that I always play with, is chromatic aberration. I think chromatic aberration is a bigger tool than what people make it out to be. Alrighty, so here again, I am dropping the brightness and adding a little bit of noise. And as I mentioned before, you can see how crazy realistic that looks now, And so I'm going to rearrange everything. Probably not going to be the final placement for everything in the thumbnail and the final piece, but you can kind of see how everything's coming together. So I am going to finish it off by adding the shadows and everything. My lighting is going to be on the upper left-hand corner. That's kind of what I went with. And even though it does look kind of backlit, it's not, I kind of like adding like a very, I don't know, my style is weird, you know. I like making it look, it does look backlit, I'm not gonna lie, so adding like shadows does seem kind of strange. But anyway, without further ado, here is the final piece. Here's the thumbnail, and you could see how you could kind of play around with these elements and, you know, make a really cool piece. And so hopefully you learned something today, and if you did, definitely give it a thumbs up, the video. And I'll be coming out with more videos and more brushes. As you know, if you check out my last video, the CRT TV effect, I gave away 2 free brushes. It's still available. They'll be available forever for free. And so definitely check that out and give it a thumbs up if you like that too. But thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.